I didn't even make it to the kitchen. My briefcase hit the floor, my keys slid across the tiles, and for the longest 3 seconds of my life, I just stared at the woman sitting on the edge of our bed. My wife's sister, Melanie, wearing one of Katie's robes, barely tied, as if the thing had just fallen onto her. Her legs were crossed like she was waiting for coffee. Calm, collected. But her eyes flicked up and down my frame like she was scanning for weaknesses. She looked like someone who already knew how this would play out. And that terrified me more than the note. The goddamn note. It was propped up on my nightstand, right where I used to keep a picture of Katie and me from our honeymoon. The photo had been replaced. The note was written in pink marker, glitter around the edges like it was crafted for a middle school Valentine's Day. She left with John forever. Don't wait up. There was a smiley face at the end. I stood there, still wearing my company ID around my neck, my shirt half untucked, sweat dried under my arms from a 14-hour shift in a warehouse with no functioning AC. I looked like I'd crawled out of a dumpster. And maybe I had, just not the kind that smells like banana peels. Mel tilted her head. She thought you'd be later, she said, voice like warm syrup. But this works. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My heart wasn't just pounding, it was slamming against my ribs like it wanted out. I slowly stepped forward, picked up the note, and read it again like maybe this time it would say something else. She's gone, I asked. It was a stupid question, but that's what your brain does when your reality breaks in two. It stalls. Mel uncrossed her legs. Her robe opened more, but I didn't even flinch. I wasn't looking at her. I was staring at the space in the closet where Katie's side used to be full, now empty. She left 3 days ago, Mel said. She told me you'd never handle it. Said you'd cry, beg, maybe even follow her. I blinked hard. 3 days? She nodded. Cabo. She and John have a villa. Big plans. My mouth was dry. My throat, tighter than a fist. I turned toward her slowly, that rage humming like static in the back of my skull. And you moved in? Took her spot. Mel smiled faintly. No. I was offered her spot. It took a second for that to land. And when it did, it felt like someone took a crowbar to my ribs. You're kidding. Nope. You expect me to believe Katie told you to replace her? Not replace. Comfort. That word. That smug, prepackaged word. Like I was some grieving widower who needed a body to cry into. Mel stood, stepped closer. She moved like a cat. Slow, silent, deliberate. She brushed past me and whispered, "You always looked at me when she wasn't watching." I didn't deny it. And that's what made me sick. There had been something there once. Something quick, something stupid. Years ago, back when Katie and I were still playing at Happiness and Melanie had just broken off an engagement. One night in Charleston. A balcony. Too much bourbon. A kiss. One. Stupid. Kiss. But nothing came of it. I shut it down. Apologized. Never touched her again. Katie never said a word. But maybe she didn't have to. Maybe she knew the whole time. I turned to Mel again. You knew she was leaving. And you said nothing. She made me promise, Mel said, voice cold now. She wanted it clean. No scenes. No dramatic. How could you crap? Just gone. I sank into the armchair in the corner, the one Katie used to throw her laundry onto. My knees were shaking. My pulse a mess. My mind couldn't even settle on one emotion. It was rage, heartbreak, shame, and confusion all wrestling for control. Then Mel walked over, crouched in front of me, and did something that twisted the knife clean through. She handed me a small envelope. My name was on it. Darren. It was Katie's handwriting. Inside was a cashier's check for $1,000. And a post-it that said, "This should help until you figure things out. $1,000. After 8 years of marriage. After joint taxes, 2 shared cars, my name on every bill while she pursued her art. She left a tip. And the sister she once called a flake with no boundaries. That woman now stood in our hallway, barefoot, sipping from a wine glass that probably still had her lipstick on it from last night. That was the night everything shifted. Not just because Katie was gone, but because Mel had plans. And 3 weeks later, when my wife walked back through that door thinking she could reclaim what she left behind, she was going to learn what Mel had really done while she was gone. I didn't sleep that night. Not a second. I just sat there in the living room, the dim glow of the streetlight leaking through the blinds, casting stripes across the walls like prison bars. Mel stayed in the master bedroom. Our bedroom. I could hear her walking barefoot on the hardwood, humming, like this was normal. Like she wasn't the sister of the woman who'd gutted me with a glitter pin. I kept staring at the check. $1,000. Like I was a petty errand boy she no longer needed. After 8 years of sacrifices, after building everything we had from scratch, eating ramen in that first apartment, loaning her money when her Etsy shop failed, taking overtime shifts to fund her sabbatical year that turned into 2. She handed me a check like I was a damn gardener she was letting go gently. I put it in the freezer. I don't know why. Just felt like the most disrespectful thing I could do at the moment. At 3:17 a.m., Mel came out of the bedroom in one of my t-shirts and no pants. She didn't say anything. Just poured herself a glass of water like she was the lady of the house. "I'm not doing this," I muttered. "Doing what?" she asked, blinking with that fake innocence she always wore like a mask. It had worked on everyone for years. It used to work on me too. This little game. You moving in, acting like this is normal. It's not. She leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping her water, not even flinching. "Then make me leave." I stood up. She didn't move. And for the first time in hours, I saw it. She wasn't just improvising. She wanted this. And it wasn't just about me. It was about Katie. Mel and Katie had never truly liked each other. I used to think their jabs were playful sister stuff. But I'd seen the way Katie would freeze when Mel came over, how she'd suddenly become this insecure, eye-rolling version of herself. She'd once whispered to me, "If I die, don't let her move in here. She's a snake." I had laughed. Mel wasn't just moving in to comfort me. She was claiming something. I backed away. "You need to be gone by morning." Mel raised an eyebrow. "And tell the neighbors what? That your wife left you and you kicked out her sister with nowhere to go? I'm sure your HOA will love that." She was right. And she knew it. I was stuck. Katie hadn't filed anything official yet. The house was still in both our names. Kicking Mel out now, without Katie present, might have looked bad if lawyers ever got involved. And I suddenly realized, I didn't know if Katie even planned to divorce me. Maybe she was just trying things with John. Maybe she was waiting to see if I'd beg. But Mel? She wasn't waiting. She was already 4 steps ahead. And she was patient. I could see it in her eyes. She didn't need a confrontation. She needed time. So I left. I grabbed my car keys and drove. Nowhere in particular. Just away. I ended up parked in front of my buddy Eric's place. Sat there until the sun came up. He wasn't even awake when I knocked. Still had pillow lines on his face. I told him everything. Not the Charleston kiss. Not yet. But everything else. Eric didn't blink. "Jesus, man," he said finally, rubbing his face. "This is some real estate soap opera shit. I don't even know what to do. She's in my house." Eric nodded slowly. Then he leaned in. "Then don't focus on Mel. Focus on the house." "What do you mean? You said Katie's name is still on everything, right?" "Yeah. And Mel's name isn't?" "Of course not." Eric smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Then start protecting your turf." That's when he introduced me to someone. His cousin, Robin. A quiet woman in her 40s who worked in real estate law. Sharp. Soft-spoken. Deadly. 3 hours later, I was sitting in her office with a copy of my deed, my prenup, and a growing folder of documents. "You're in luck," she said, flipping through the pages. "Looks like Katie signed over financial control of the estate to you 2 years ago when she defaulted on that business loan. You remember that?" I did. Her candle business. The one I bailed out with a personal loan from my 401k. She had promised it was temporary. Turns out, it wasn't. It gave me signing power. Robin smiled. "That means you can do something very interesting." I leaned in. My pulse picked up. Robin tapped a line on the document. "You can legally add someone to the ownership of the house." I blinked. Why would I want to do that? She looked up at me, steady as stone. "To corner your wife. And whatever her endgame is, crush it before she knows what happened." I sat back in the chair. And just like that, a plan started forming. Katie left her sister as bait. But she forgot one thing. Snakes don't hunt alone. Sometimes, they nest. Mel didn't ask where I'd gone the night before. When I walked back into the house that Saturday morning, she was in the backyard sunbathing on a lounge chair, drinking one of Katie's overpriced smoothies and wearing my sunglasses. Her robe was draped across the railing like a thrown flag. She gave me a lazy little wave, like I was a waiter showing up late to a shift. The sheer entitlement of it almost made me laugh. Almost. "Morning," she purred without opening her eyes. I didn't answer. I just walked past her and into the kitchen, pulled the freezer open, and stared at that damn check still frozen solid between two bags of peas. Katie must have thought she was so clever. Disappear with her office boy toy, dump the emotional fallout on her estranged little sister, and keep one foot in the house just in case her fling fizzled. She probably thought I'd crumble, cry, beg, maybe even fall into Mel's arms so she could call it even, say we were both to blame. But I had spent the last 24 hours building something she never saw coming. Robin had worked fast. By noon, the paperwork was ready. All it needed was a signature. And that signature was going to change everything. See, when Katie took that loan from me to save her candle business, we made a little arrangement. She would sign over temporary power of attorney so I could secure the funds through my investment account. Just until I get back on my feet, she'd said. Then she never got back on anything except John. But the signature stayed. She never revoked it. That meant I still had the authority to make real estate decisions in her name. That meant I could legally add a co-owner to the house. And I was going to use that power to drop a bomb so clean, so surgical, it would leave both sisters choking on their schemes. That afternoon, I asked Mel to come inside. She padded in barefoot, holding a green smoothie like it was a martini. "What's up?" she asked, twirling a lock of hair around her finger. "I want to talk," I said, motioning toward the kitchen island. "About the house." Her eyes sharpened just slightly. "What about it?" "You've been here for 4 days," I said. "You've settled in. And I get the feeling you're not planning on leaving anytime soon." She said nothing. "So I'm offering you something," I continued. "Stability. Permanence." Mel raised an eyebrow. "You want me to pay rent?" "No," I said, sliding the papers toward her. "I want you to co-own it." The silence was immediate and thick. She picked up the first page and scanned it, lips parting just slightly. Her hands trembled, just a hair. "You're serious?" she whispered. "Dead serious. You'd do that for me?" I looked her in the eyes. "Only if you're willing to make it official." She smiled. She beamed. That sugary, wide-eyed look she used to fool half the planet. And maybe a part of her believed she was winning. But I wasn't just handing her the keys to the kingdom. I was locking Katie out. By adding Mel's name as co-owner, with Katie's own power of attorney, I was triggering a clause in our prenup. A buried clause that said, in the event of shared property being voluntarily assigned to a non-blood relative during separation, all marital claims on that asset could be contested in court. In short, the moment Mel signed, Katie would lose her leverage. She'd abandoned the property. I hadn't sold it. I hadn't gifted it to a mistress. I had, legally, transferred partial ownership to family. Family who lived in the home while Katie was gone. If Katie ever came back, she'd be walking into a house that was no longer hers. She didn't know that yet. Mel, of course, was thrilled. She signed without blinking. "Should we celebrate?" she asked. I smiled thinly. "Let's not jinx it." But that night, after she went to bed, I opened a locked drawer in my desk and pulled out something I hadn't touched in years. Katie's old journal. She used to leave it lying around the house. Open on the couch, on the nightstand, even in the bathroom. At first, I respected her privacy. But back when things started going cold between us, I started reading the entries. What I found wasn't just bitterness or boredom. It was calculation. There were pages where she described Mel as emotionally stunted, needy, and just dumb enough to weaponize. One entry, dated 2 years ago, read, "If Darren ever strays, I'll make sure it's with her. No one else could humiliate him the way she can. And she'll do it just to get a taste of what I have." That entry stayed with me. Katie knew Mel's type. Knew she'd never have her own identity. Only try to copy or steal someone else's. So she fed her crumbs. Let her orbit the relationship like a vulture. But she never expected me to use that against her. By Sunday, the paperwork was filed. Mel was an official co-owner of the estate. The house was now split between me and her. Katie's name? Buried under legal footnotes. Useless. And 3 days later, I got a text from a number I hadn't seen in weeks. Darren, I made a mistake. I need to come home. Please. I stared at that message for 10 full minutes. Then I typed 3 words. Not your home. The trap was set. The snake was slithering back to her nest, and she had no idea it had already been burned to the ground. The text came at 2:14 a.m. Typical Katie, always reaching out in the dead of night, when she thought the shadows made her harder to see through. The message was short, careful, just enough vulnerability to sound sincere, but vague enough to give herself an out if I didn't take the bait. Darren, I made a mistake. I need to come home. Please. Not I miss you. Not I love you. Not even I'm sorry. Just I need. Need. Katie didn't love. Katie acquired. That night, I didn't respond. I stared at the screen until it dimmed and eventually went black. Then I placed the phone face down and let the silence crawl across the room like smoke. My fingers dug into the armrest of the recliner. My jaw ached from clenching. My mind ran in every direction, but kept circling back to that word. Home. She thought she still had one. She had no idea she was the only guest in a party where every chair had already been moved, the cake was sliced, and her name had been carved off the invitation. By sunrise, another message came. John and I aren't working out. I need time to explain. I can't do this over text. Just meet me. Please. No period this time. She was unraveling. I could see the seams. By noon, there were 3 missed calls. Then 5. Then 12. I ignored them all. Mel noticed. She said nothing directly, but I could feel her awareness. Like a cat watching 2 birds fight through a window. She knew Katie was clawing at the edges now. And the more frantic Katie became, the calmer Mel got. That unnerved me more than I'd admit. Mel had changed since signing those papers. Not outwardly. No smug speeches or high heels on the furniture. But internally, something had settled. She was no longer playing the role of the overlooked sister. She'd stepped into something darker, comfortable. She started organizing closets, tossing out Katie's old makeup, redecorating shelves, replacing candles, folding towels. One morning I walked into the kitchen and saw she'd relabeled the spice rack with her handwriting. It wasn't even about the spices. It was about territory. You're quiet lately, she said over coffee that Monday. I've been thinking, I said, about her. I didn't answer. She took a slow sip, smiled over the rim. She's coming back, isn't she? She's trying. She'll want everything. She won't get it. Mel's smile grew wider. Not warm. Not grateful. Just satisfied. That afternoon, I met with Robin again. We went over the timeline. Mel's name was already processed through the county recorder's office. The digital confirmation had arrived at 10:03 a.m. Everything was airtight. Any attempt by Katie to reassert property claims would get tangled in months of legal knots. If she even realized what had happened. And something told me she hadn't. Because the next message she sent wasn't a plea. It was a threat. I'm coming back Friday. Don't be stupid, Darren. You can't erase me. That's my house too. That told me everything I needed to know. She still believed the lie she left behind. She still thought Mel was a pawn. Friday. For days away. That gave me time. And I wasn't going to waste it. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted a demolition. So I called Eric. You remember that drone you were bragging about? I asked. The one with the HD feed and directional mic? Yeah. Still got it. What? I need aerial footage. He paused. Of what? My house. Darren, are you planning a siege? Worse, I said. I'm planning a welcome party. That night, I told Mel exactly what I wanted her to do. At first, she blinked. Confused. You want me to what? I need you to play your role. All the way. No hesitation. She narrowed her eyes. She'll lose it. That's the point. Mel crossed her arms. And what do I get out of this, exactly? You already have half the house. True. She tilted her head. But I want more. I hesitated. More of what? Of her. Her voice was low. Ferocious. Not loud, but full of venom. She walked away like we were disposable. Like she could leave her trash behind and come back to a clean porch. No. If we're doing this, I want her to see what it looks like when the world she built starts calling someone else ma'am. I stared at her. Mel had always wanted her sister's life. But now she didn't just want to imitate Katie. She wanted to erase her. And honestly, I wasn't sure which of the sisters I hated more anymore. But I nodded. Friday at noon, I said, let's make it unforgettable. The storm was coming, and every snake in this nest would soon find out who the real predator was. Friday arrived like a loaded gun on the kitchen counter, just sitting there, daring someone to pick it up. I woke up before dawn. Not because I set an alarm, but because my brain wouldn't stop playing out every possible outcome like a bad courtroom drama. Katie showing up with tears. Katie showing up with a lawyer. Katie showing up and throwing a brick through the window. I didn't know which version of her would walk through that door. But I knew one thing. She wasn't walking into the same house she left. Mel was already awake. She'd been up for hours, judging by the smell of brewed coffee and the soft rhythm of jazz playing through the Bluetooth speakers. She'd cleaned the entire first floor, rearranged the living room, wore a white sundress with red lipstick and pearls. Her hair was curled. She looked like a TV wife from the 1960s who'd just poisoned her husband and served the police lemonade. You ready? She asked, sipping from a champagne flute. I'm not sure ready is the word, I muttered. She smiled. Doesn't matter. She's coming anyway. Eric arrived at 10:30 with his drone. He parked 3 blocks down and set up shop on the top level of a nearby parking structure. His camera feed beamed straight to a tablet in my living room, giving me a perfect aerial view of our street. A black SUV pulled into our cul-de-sac at exactly 11:58. It was Katie, right on time. But she wasn't alone. I recognized the face in the passenger seat from an old work barbecue. John, the man she used to describe as barely sentient. The same guy who once asked me what a 401k was and then told a server to smile more. He was driving her car. I watched them sit in the driveway for nearly a full minute. Katie was talking. Fast. Her hands moving in wide, sweeping gestures. John just nodded along like a golden retriever in a suit. Mel leaned over my shoulder. She's stalling. She's nervous. She should be. Then the car doors opened. Katie stepped out first. Sunglasses on, scarf around her neck like she was trying to cosplay as Jackie Kennedy. She walked with purpose, but her eyes betrayed her. They scanned the house like she didn't recognize it. And in a way, she didn't. The shutters were changed. Mel had swapped out the wreath. The garden beds had been replanted. Our once shared home now looked different, like it had forgotten her. When she knocked, I let Mel answer the door. I stayed just out of view, behind the hallway arch, watching through the reflection in the hall mirror. Katie blinked when she saw her. Mel was all sugar. Oh, you made it. Katie hesitated. Where's Darren? Mel stepped aside. Inside. Come on in. Katie moved cautiously, like a deer just realizing the forest's too quiet. John followed with a smug smirk on his face like he thought he was walking into a negotiation. Mel led them to the kitchen. I stepped in a moment later. Katie's eyes locked on mine. And just for a second, there it was. Regret. Not the fake, manipulative kind. The real, gut-squeezing kind. She opened her mouth, probably to launch into some polished apology. But before she could speak, Mel stepped forward and, God help me, kissed me on the cheek. Long, deliberate. Right in front of her. Katie froze. John raised an eyebrow. Well, damn. Katie's mouth parted like she'd just swallowed a wasp. What is this? She asked. I walked to the island, picked up 2 glasses, poured bourbon over ice, and offered one to Mel. Then I turned to Katie. You said you needed to come home, I said calmly. But this isn't your home anymore. Her brows drew together. Don't be ridiculous. My name's still on the deed. No, I said. It isn't. She laughed. Actually laughed. Darren, I left for 3 weeks. You think that gives you the right to throw me out and play house with her? Mel held up a folder. We filed Monday. I'm on the deed. Darren had legal authority. You handed it to him when you tanked your business and signed that power of attorney, remember? Katie snatched the folder, flipping through it, her expression twisting with every page. Then her hands began to tremble. You didn't. I did, I said. And I did it legally. You can try to contest it, but based on your absence and the timing, the court's going to have a very hard time siding with someone who abandoned the home and left no written claim of intent to return. Katie's face paled. John finally stepped in. Okay, let's slow this down. There's no need to be hostile. Mel laughed softly. Oh, sweetheart. You haven't seen Hostile yet. Katie looked from me to Mel, then back again. And for the first time in our entire relationship, she looked small. Cornered. "What do you want?" she whispered. "I wanted closure," I said. "But now? I want peace. And you bring neither." "You're making a mistake," she snapped, her voice rising. "This is revenge. This is petty." "No," I replied, stepping closer. "Petty was leaving a glitter note next to your half-naked sister like I was a fool. This is reclaiming." Katie shook her head. "I'm still your wife." "Then act like it," Mel hissed, the venom leaking through her smile. "Or leave like the last time, but this time, make it permanent." Katie's chest rose and fell with shallow, panicked breaths. Her sunglasses were still on, but her armor was crumbling. John awkwardly put a hand on her shoulder, but she shrugged it off. "I'll see you in court," she said finally. "You might," I replied. "But you'll be walking in with a lot less than you walked out with." She turned, walked out, didn't slam the door. John followed her, whispering something that made her flinch. The SUV peeled away seconds later. Silence fell. Mel sipped her bourbon, watching the door. Then she turned to me. "Well," she said, "I think we just buried a ghost." I didn't respond. Because what she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that the ghost had one more secret. And I had found it. Locked away in the bottom of a storage bin in the attic. One that would change everything again. It was an accident. I hadn't been looking for anything. After Katie stormed out and the dust started to settle, I felt this hollow space open inside me, like all the noise had finally stopped, and now I could hear the silence. That terrifying, suffocating silence of a house that used to have a soul. So I went up to the attic. The plan was simple. Grab an old box of photos, maybe flip through a few old college memories, try to remember who I was before I became the guy whose wife left him with a pink glitter note and a smirking sister-in-law. But instead, I found it. Tucked in the back corner behind a crate of Christmas decorations, inside a box labeled "Junk, Do Not Open," was a narrow fireproof file case. I remembered it only faintly. Katie had insisted on buying it back when she got into her organization era, right before the candle business crashed and burned. Curiosity, or maybe instinct, made me drag it down and open it. Inside, there were documents I'd never seen before. Bank transfers. Receipts. A small brown envelope sealed with tape that read, in Katie's handwriting, "Only open if the bastard ever tries to screw me." I froze. That handwriting, it was angry. Slanted. Not the casual loops of her grocery lists or her mocking notes. It was the kind of script people write when they're seething and don't trust themselves to speak. For a full minute, I just stared at it. Then I peeled the tape off. Inside were photographs. And a flash drive. My fingers were trembling before I even clicked it into my laptop. The folder was titled Leverage. It had 6 video files and a document labeled Timeline. The videos were short, surveillance style. Each one dated between 5 and 7 months ago. And every single one of them showed Mel. In my house. Alone. Going through my files. Rifling through Katie's closet. Taking photos of our mortgage papers. Our prenup. Our bank statements. One clip, time-stamped at 3:47 a.m., showed her standing in our bedroom, looking at herself in Katie's mirror, wearing her clothes. But the worst was the last one. Mel, lying in our bed, holding my shirt to her face, whispering, "You'll be mine. I'll do whatever it takes." I sat back from the screen like it had burned me. Everything I thought I'd figured out about the last 3 weeks, hell, the last 3 years, started to fall apart in reverse. Katie hadn't just left. She'd baited me. She knew. She knew Mel had been playing some twisted long game, inching her way into our life like mold behind wallpaper. And instead of confronting her, Katie had laid the trap. The check in the freezer. The note on the nightstand. The glitter. She hadn't walked out because she was weak. She walked out because she was waiting to see if I'd notice. But I hadn't. I'd been so consumed by my own heartbreak, so desperate to regain control, that I handed Mel the throne. I made her co-owner. I gave her everything Katie had tried to protect. And now? Now I knew exactly how deep I was in. Downstairs, Mel was singing. Some old Fleetwood Mac song. Her voice drifted up the stairwell like smoke from a fire I'd forgotten to put out. I snapped the laptop shut, packed everything back in the envelope, slid it into my backpack. I needed to think. But more than that, I needed space. I grabbed my keys and left without a word. Ended up at a bar I hadn't stepped into since my bachelor party, Dark. Quiet. Bartender who didn't ask questions. I sat there for 2 hours, nursing one drink, just replaying every moment I'd missed. The compliments Mel gave me that felt too rehearsed. The way she always knew where Katie had left things. The fact that she never once asked when her sister was coming back. And the clincher? That conversation we had on the porch the day before Katie returned. What do I get out of this? She'd asked. More of her, she'd said. Not me. Not the house. Not even revenge. Her. She didn't just want Katie's life. She wanted Katie's identity. Piece by piece. Day by day. And I had signed the deed. When I returned home that night, the house was dark. Too dark. I walked in, dropped my keys, and felt a weight in the air that hadn't been there before. Then I noticed the table. Mel had set it for 2. Candles. Wine. Steak. She was wearing Katie's favorite dress. The one I bought for our anniversary 3 years ago. I remembered because it cost more than my first car. She stepped out from the hallway, barefoot, her hair curled just like Katie used to wear it when we still had date nights. You're late, she said softly. I didn't move. I didn't sit. I just stared. I went looking for some photos today, I said. Her eyes flicked, just slightly. Oh, in the attic. That got her. She blinked. Swallowed. A crack in the perfect porcelain mask. What did you find? I tilted my head. You tell me. She smiled. But her fingers twitched. I don't know what you're talking about. I walked past the table, opened the fridge, pulled out the check she'd probably forgotten was even there. Tossed it on the dinner plate. You win, Mel, I said. But you're not ready for what comes next. I left her standing there. The candles still flickering. The steak growing cold. And upstairs, I locked the door. Because I had just realized something horrifying. Katie hadn't just baited me to trap Mel. She'd baited both of us. And the moment I handed Mel the house, I had walked right into my wife's final play. A play that wasn't about love. It was about punishment. And it had only just begun. The dream that night was violent. Not blood and screaming, something worse. I was back in our wedding chapel, except everything was wrong. The pews were empty. The altar was scorched black. Mel stood where Katie should have been, in that same stolen dress, smiling wide as she slid a ring onto her own finger. I turned to look for Katie. She was in the front row, hands folded, watching calmly as if she'd planned the whole thing. I woke up gasping. It was just after 4 a.m., and the house was too quiet. I crept downstairs, careful not to make a sound. The kitchen light was still on. 2 wine glasses sat on the counter, one full, one empty. The steak was untouched. Mel's shoes were by the door, but she was nowhere. I checked the patio. Nothing. Then I saw the study light. The door was ajar. I stepped closer, heart crawling up my throat. Mel sat at my desk. Laptop open. My laptop. She didn't hear me. Her focus was razor sharp, her fingers scrolling through folder after folder. She was deep in my financials. My emails. My saved PDFs. Everything I hadn't thought to lock down. I didn't say a word. I backed away, slid upstairs, and changed the password to everything I owned before sunrise. By 8 a.m., I was in Robin's office. She didn't greet me with a smile this time. What did you find? She asked, voice low. I placed the envelope on her desk and opened the laptop. Showed her the videos, the timeline, the documents. She watched in silence, arms crossed, jaw clenched. When it was over, she let out a slow, tight breath. Well, she said, your wife's crueler than I thought. She set it all up, I muttered. From the beginning. Robin nodded. And she never revoked the power of attorney. That means, technically, what you did with Mel was legal. But only because Katie allowed it. I froze. You're saying she wanted me to give Mel the house? She set the stage for it, Robin said. Laid out the bait, walked away, and waited for you to hang yourself. She knew you'd either fall into bed with her sister or try to punish her by using Mel. Either way, she wins. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Wins what? Robin turned the screen toward me. She'd opened one of the legal clauses from my prenup. This, she said, pointing, buried under subsection C. If you knowingly transfer marital property into the hands of a party with an established conflict of interest, like a relative she's documented as unstable, it can be grounds for punitive separation. Katie can argue that your decision endangered her marital estate. I leaned forward, but she left me. She didn't file. I froze. And if she files now, with this footage and timeline, Robin continued, she can spin the narrative however she wants. That you colluded with Mel. That you exploited her absence. That Mel seduced you to gain property and you went along with it. She's documented Mel's instability. The journal entries help. She might even convince a judge to roll back the deed. But I have her signature, I argued. Doesn't matter, Robin said. This is about intent. And Katie's been building hers for years. My throat dried. So what do? Robin locked eyes with me. You dig. You find her leverage. Because trust me, if she's playing this kind of long game, she's got more cards. I left her office numb, but determined. By noon, I was back in the attic. This time, I brought gloves and a flashlight. I tore through every box, every crate labeled as Maz or Donate or Misc. I found childhood photos, love letters from high school, a dusty box of candles from Katie's failed startup, still labeled Test Batch, Do Not Burn. Then I hit something odd, a steel filing cabinet. One I didn't buy. Locked. I checked the drawers. Nothing. But taped underneath? A key. Inside the cabinet was a single red folder. No label. Just thick. I opened it and felt the air leave my lungs. It wasn't about Mel. It was about John. Receipts. Plane tickets. Hotel bills. Credit card statements. Going back 5 years. I flipped through them, eyes wide. Photos of Katie and John before the marriage even soured. Business conferences that turned into weekends away. Duplicate purchases. One entry, a necklace Katie claimed had been a custom Etsy piece from me. Turned out it came from a boutique in Sedona with John's name on the receipt. Katie had been cheating on me long before the glitter note. And now? She was using that same man to return and claim the estate. But then I found something even worse. A notarized document. Signed 3 months ago. From Katie. To John. A declaration of trust transferring her half of any recovered marital property to him in the event of a divorce. If she regained the house, he would own it. I sank to the floor. Numb. It wasn't about Mel. It never was. Katie had used her as bait. She had used me as the fool who would hand the keys to the house away, just long enough for her to build a legal case, drag me through court, and transfer the whole thing to her new lover like a goddamn trophy. And the worst part? She almost succeeded. But now? Now I had the file. Now I had the truth. And I wasn't going to confront her with it. I was going to bury her with it. Quietly. Efficiently. With no chance to scream. The next 48 hours were the quietest of my life. Outwardly, nothing changed. I still woke up, made coffee, nodded at Mel when we crossed paths. I even ate the breakfast she made, scrambled eggs and toast, served on Katie's floral china like a silent dare. But inside, I was a storm. I had the file. I had the timeline. I had the receipts. And more importantly, I had the trust transfer document from Katie to John, proof that the house wasn't the prize she was fighting for. I was, or more precisely, the fool I was supposed to become. The one who'd crack, lash out, implode. She wanted me bitter, broken, and reactive. Instead, I was focused. Surgical. On Monday morning, I walked into Robin's office and laid everything out. Her eyes widened, just slightly, as she scanned the trust document. John owns everything if she wins? I nodded. Even the house. She exhaled. Then we flipped the table. We got to work. The plan wasn't just legal, it was personal. We wouldn't fight Katie. We'd let her believe she'd won. Let her build her case, file her motions, serve me with papers. And then, only then, we'd bring the hammer down. Robin drafted a response plan that was so clean it could have been taught in law school. Every receipt, video, and message was cataloged. We even got Eric to edit the drone footage into a neat, chronological package showing Katie's return, her visible shock, and Mel's calm demeanor. Mel didn't know about any of this. She thought I was falling for her, that I was letting her take root. She was wrong, because now I understood something chilling. Katie hadn't underestimated me. She had counted on me figuring it out. She wanted Mel burned too. This was her final act of vengeance, not against me, but against the one person she hated more than she loved herself. Her sister. Katie knew I wouldn't forgive the betrayal. She knew I'd feel cornered. And she knew, eventually, I'd uncover the file in the attic. Which is why she hid a copy of the trust document in my house, not John's. She wanted it found. She wanted me to be the one to pull the trigger. And now? I was ready. The final piece fell into place 2 days later when Robin received a call from Katie's lawyer. They were filing for divorce. Katie was claiming emotional abandonment, undue transfer of marital assets, and psychological distress due to my entanglement with Mel. It was almost comical how predictable it was. Robin smiled as she hung up. She just handed us the match, she said. By Thursday, we had everything prepared. But there was one last piece I needed to handle myself. Mel. I waited until she was in the bath. She loved long, drawn-out soaks with candles and jazz, the perfect time to move unnoticed. I stepped into her room and searched. Not for clothes. Not for personal notes. I searched for plans. And I found them. A red leather-bound notebook under her mattress, wrapped in an old college hoodie. Inside were diary entries. Most recent first. They weren't romantic. They were strategic. Darren is soft right now. Needs control. Keep cooking. Keep touching him casually. Katie will come back. She always does. Let her. She'll dig her own grave. And then, this one. If she gets the house back, she'll sign it to John. That idiot doesn't even love her. He's in it for the property. Katie's too arrogant to see it. Let them burn each other. Mel wasn't a victim. She wasn't a pawn. She was playing both sides. She knew about the trust. She knew Katie's play. She just thought she could catch the debris once the house collapsed. But she forgot one thing. The man in the middle doesn't always stay neutral. Sometimes, he lights the fuse himself. That night, I set the trap. I printed copies of Mel's diary entries and tucked them into Katie's envelope. I included a note. You wanted revenge. Here it is. But not the way you planned. And I sent it to Katie's lawyer. By courier. No warning. No explanation. Robin had drafted a motion that morning, a request for voluntary mediation with full disclosure. It was a Trojan horse. Katie would see the documents. She'd see Mel's betrayal, her manipulation. She'd realize I wasn't defending Mel. I was exposing her. Both of them. And best of all, the motion would freeze all asset claims for 10 business days, meaning no one could touch the house, file a lien, or transfer anything. They were stuck. Together. In the wreckage they built. Friday morning, I made coffee again. Mel came downstairs in leggings and a smug smirk, stretching like a queen surveying her domain. Big plans today? She asked. Just paperwork. For what? Closure, I said simply. She didn't get it. Not yet. But she would. Because in 48 hours, Katie's lawyer would open that envelope. And when he did, all hell would break loose. And I'd be standing in the middle of it, untouched, watching two queens realize the throne they fought over belonged to neither of them. The call came Sunday morning. Robin's number. No greeting. Just 3 words. She took the bait. Katie had seen the envelope. Every page. Every line of Mel's handwriting. Every twisted plan. Every manipulative journal entry. She saw the parts where Mel talked about her like an expired warranty. Saw the line about John, how he was in it for the property and too dumb to win without a woman steering him. And Katie? She snapped. According to Robin, the first thing she did was fire her lawyer. Then she went quiet for 12 hours. Not a word. No threats. No legal counterplay. Just silence. But it didn't last. At 2:47 a.m., she texted me. How long have you known? Then another. Did you play me? Or her? And finally. We're both poison. I just never thought you'd drink hers. I didn't answer. Because the truth didn't matter anymore. The trap had already closed. By Monday, Mel sensed the shift. She stopped humming in the mornings. No more accidental brushing of my shoulder. No more steak dinners served with a hopeful smile. She was watching me now, really watching. Like a gambler who realized the house wasn't playing fair anymore. You've been quiet, she said that evening, setting a plate down in front of me. Just thinking. About Katie? About everything. She sat across from me, eyes narrowing. You're planning something. No, I said, meeting her stare. I already did. That night, she tried to access my laptop. I knew because I'd installed tracking software 2 days earlier. She made 3 attempts, failed the security challenge, then spent 15 minutes erasing her browser history. She thought I didn't see. But I did. Every move she made was now a shadow of confidence, a flicker of panic beneath polished smiles. Then Tuesday came, and with it chaos. At 9:12 a.m., Katie pulled into the driveway unannounced. No makeup, hair in a messy knot, wearing the same gray sweatshirt she used to sleep in during flu season. She looked human, not polished, not composed, just exhausted. Mel saw her through the window and froze. I was in the kitchen. Didn't move. Didn't need to. Katie knocked once, twice, then walked in like she still owned the place. Her eyes locked on Mel. Get out. Mel blinked. Excuse me. I said get out, Katie repeated, stepping closer. Take your little power games, your fantasy journals, and the pathetic idea that you could ever replace me, and get out. Mel stood slowly. You don't have the authority. Katie held up the envelope I sent. Neither do you. For a full 10 seconds, they just stared at each other. Sisters. Enemies. Reflections warped by years of jealousy and quiet war. Then Mel laughed. You're just mad I beat you to it. Katie's voice dropped. You didn't beat me. You walked into the cage I built for you. Mel blinked. What? Katie turned to me. Tell her. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. She knew everything, I said. From the start. The fake breakup. The note. The power of attorney. She watched the cameras. Read your messages. Knew what you were doing even before you knew. Mel's mouth opened. Closed. You let me move in, she whispered. You let me. Katie smiled. Not kind. Not triumphant. Empty. You were never a threat, she said. You were bait. And you swallowed yourself. Mel's voice cracked. And Darren? He just went along with it. I looked her dead in the eye. I wanted the truth. And you handed it to me. Mel's face changed then. Not anger. Hurt. Real, raw, disbelief. Like she couldn't understand why I didn't fall for the version of her she'd rehearsed in the mirror for years. She turned to Katie, eyes shimmering. You were willing to sacrifice your sister for a house? Katie tilted her head. No. I was willing to sacrifice you for justice. Mel laughed, breathless. Then she grabbed her bag from the hallway, stuffed in what she could, and left. Just like that. No final scream. No tears. Just the echo of her heels on the hardwood. Silence followed. Katie didn't say a word. She sat at the kitchen table, stared out the window. After a long minute, she spoke. I'm not here to get back together. I figured. I just didn't want her to win. She didn't. Katie turned to me. And you? I didn't win either, I said. We sat in that silence, two ghosts of a marriage, surrounded by the ruins we both built. Then she stood. You'll be hearing from my new lawyer, she said. I'll be ready. She walked out. Didn't look back. And this time, she didn't leave a note. She didn't need to. The game was over. But there was still one more move to make. And only one person left who didn't know what it was. I didn't expect her to walk away so easily. Katie, my wife. The woman who had spent years spinning webs of lies and manipulation. After everything we'd been through, I thought she would fight, argue, throw a final tantrum, something. But she didn't. She just left. And it hit me then. The last part of her plan wasn't about me. It wasn't about revenge. It was about control. She wanted to leave, walk away with everything intact, and let us destroy each other in her absence. But she hadn't accounted for one thing. I wasn't going to destroy Mel, and I wasn't going to let Katie win. Not this time. For the next week, I went through the motions. Went to work. Met with Robin to tie up the legalities. Answered texts from friends who had no idea what was really going on. Nobody suspected a thing. Not even Mel. She thought the game was over. But it wasn't. I had one more step to take. I went to Katie's lawyer's office on Friday, alone, with nothing but a folder under my arm. The lawyer looked up when I entered. He didn't ask for the usual pleasantries. He knew who I was, and he knew what was coming. I slid the folder across the desk. You're going to want to see this, I said. He opened it, glanced at the first page, and his expression shifted immediately. Where did you get this? Doesn't matter, I said. But you're going to make sure Katie never sees it. He didn't speak for a while, just stared at the documents in front of him, flipping through the pages. The trust, the timeline, the receipts from her affair with John, the notarized declaration, and a few extra pieces, things I'd found after Katie had left. Documents that proved that while she'd been playing her little games, John had been putting his fingers into other pies. The lawyer knew what this meant. It wasn't just about Katie and the house anymore. This was about fraud. And, more importantly, it was about conspiracy. "You can't use this," he said eventually, closing the folder. "This isn't admissible." I smiled. "It will be. Because if it's not, you'll be the one explaining to the bar why you didn't disclose this when Katie filed." His eyes flickered. "Do we have an understanding?" I asked. He looked at me, nodded sharply, then shoved the folder back into the drawer. "I'll make sure this never reaches her." I stood up, ready to leave, but then I paused at the door. "And just so we're clear, I'm not playing the long game anymore. If I'm going down, Katie's going down with me. No one gets out clean." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. I left the office. And from that moment on, things changed. I never saw Katie again. Never heard from her lawyer. The papers that were supposed to be filed never arrived. The legal threats stopped. She disappeared completely. I didn't know where she went. I didn't care. But I did know this. Katie lost. And Mel? She never came back. Not in the way she thought she would. I heard rumors. I heard whispers from friends who knew her from before, people she used to use as stepping stones. They said she was living in some rundown apartment in a crumbling part of town. That her beauty, her charm, her manipulative smile, none of it worked anymore. The power had shifted. And me? I was the one who'd won. Not because I had the house. Not because I took everything from Katie and Mel. But because I finally understood the game. And I played it better than either of them ever could. The house. It was just bricks and mortar. What I really had was the truth. And nobody could take that away from me.